Did you ever think that back in the Cold War days, the Soviets were building trucks so incredibly massive that they still look like they belong in a blockbuster sci-fi movie? We're talking about monsters that could plow through frozen swamps, icy wilderness, hauling intercontinental nuclear weapons, or even picking up cosmonauts who landed in some godforsaken corner of Siberia. While everyone else fixated on fighter planes and battle tanks, the Soviets were quietly crafting some of the most enormous and powerful trucks humanity has ever seen. So here's my question for you. Have you heard about these giants? Or do you actually think you know them all? Right now, we're diving deep into an era when Soviet steel, brute engineering, and sheer determination came together to build vehicles that seemed to break every rule of physics. Trucks so enormous and so intimidating that people today refuse to believe they actually existed. Want to explore the 10 most gigantic Soviet trucks that history almost forgot? Stay with me until the finale because the last one is absolutely going to blow your mind. ZIL 4906. Back in the 70s, the Soviet Union had a wild problem. How do you rescue cosmonauts landing in the most isolated places imaginable with no infrastructure, deep snowdrifts, and icy rivers everywhere? That's exactly why they built the ZIL 4906, a mammoth amphibious rescue vehicle designed for impossible conditions. Manufactured by ZIL, this absolute unit stretched beyond 29 feet in length, 8 feet across, and stood almost 10 feet high. Tipping the scales at over 22,000 pounds without cargo, that massive frame was packed with rescue gear, medical equipment, and even complete space capsules, all while staying afloat in water. Power came from a 6.9-liter V8 gas engine, churning out approximately 180 horses. Four-wheel drive combined with independent suspension meant it could barrel through swamps, frozen streams, or waist deep snow without breaking stride. Design looked like someone crossed a military transport with an armored riverboat. 3 people fit in the front cabin, while the back offered flat space for laying recovered cosmonauts horizontally. And its watertight body let it glide across lakes and rivers effortlessly. That distinctive V8 thunder mixed with crashing icy waves created an unforgettable sound. During real operations, this machine covered more than 60 miles through wilderness, just to retrieve Soyuz capsules that overshot their planned landing areas. And get this? Certain missions carried an inflatable emergency raft mounted topside in case crews needed to separate upon reaching water. These days, the ZIL 4906 sits in museums, but people remember it as one of the most daring engineering solutions from the Soviet space era. And while we're discussing incredible engineering, our next truck wasn't designed for saving anyone. It was created to haul something capable of ending them. 9K714 OKA. If you thought the ZIL 4906 was extraordinary, the 9K714 OKA redefines what colossal really means. Conceived during the early 80s, this wasn't any rescue vehicle. This was purpose-built for launching nuclear warheads, genuine missiles, with strike capabilities reaching 310 miles. The launching apparatus sat mounted on a beefed-up variant of that famous MAZ-543 platform. This monster spanned more than 39 feet lengthwise, exceeded 10 feet in height, and tipped nearly 90,000 pounds on the scale. When fully armed, it outsized typical city buses, and once that missile system raised into position, the entire assembly reached heights matching a 2-floor building. Underneath sat a 38.8-liter V12 diesel monster, cranking out more than 500 horses with earth-moving torque. 8 powered wheels plus torsion bar suspension handled the brutal mass and challenging landscapes. Whether mud, snow, or sand, nothing could stop it. The appearance was absolutely menacing. A compact armored cockpit dominated the front, while the massive rear compartment contained the giant launching mechanism concealed beneath a retractable lid that lifted straight up like futuristic military hardware. Why build it so large? Pure necessity, combining mobility with stability. The OKA needed rapid repositioning, quick concealment, and launch readiness within minutes, all without requiring any fixed installation. And here's what's crazy. Despite never being officially included in the INF disarmament treaties, America insisted on removing it anyway. That's how threatening it appeared. Currently, hardly any remain operational, and people who've actually stood beside one say it doesn't resemble a truck. It resembles a rolling doomsday device. But if raw muscle impressed you, our next entry didn't merely transport loads. It dragged absolutely impossible cargo while bellowing like some mechanical demon. MZKT 537. Even today, the MZKT 537 symbolizes pure Soviet muscle. Originally introduced during the late 50s, it served one explicit function: dragging the absolute heaviest objects the Soviet Union possessed: missiles, armored tanks, portable bridges, plus oversized equipment that seemed to mock common sense. The truck's dimensions were staggering, exceeding 30 feet in length, spanning 11.5 feet wide, climbing nearly 10 feet tall. Empty weight hit 47,000 pounds, yet the reinforced chassis managed payloads reaching 110,000 pounds without complaint. Power came from a 38.8-liter V12 diesel beast generating more than 525 horses, plus sufficient twisting power for yanking main battle tanks through thick mud. 8 driven wheels with torsion bar suspension conquered deserts, marshlands, ice sheets, or basically anything blocking the path. From any distance, it resembled some mechanical nightmare. The driver compartment sat positioned way back, the tires looked absolutely monstrous, and that deep diesel roar announced its arrival miles beforehand. Servicemen claimed feeling the vibrations pounding through their rib cages before ever glimpsing it. Given its bulk, maneuvering proved challenging, so operations typically occurred across open military grounds or within protected convoys. It also became the foundation for mobile nuclear launching systems, becoming vital during Cold War strategic operations. Fascinatingly, military applications weren't exclusive. The MZKT 537 contributed significantly to civilian atomic projects, moving reactor assemblies weighing beyond 40 tons toward isolated power facilities where alternatives couldn't penetrate. And shockingly, several units continue operating currently, both within military inventories and repurposed for ultra-heavy hauling throughout distant Russian and Central Asian regions. You think that's wild? Just wait. The next one made regular highways look like bicycle paths. KRAZ 260 released back in 1979. The KRAZ 260 existed for one straightforward purpose: moving massive military loads through landscapes where typical trucks would simply die. What made it absolutely legendary was its jaw-dropping dimensions. So gigantic it turned other military vehicles into toys by comparison. Manufactured in Soviet-controlled Ukraine by KRAZ, this Titan extended past 30 feet front to back, climbed nearly 9 feet skyward, and spread almost 9 feet side to side. Without anything loaded, it weighed more than 26,000 pounds, yet could stack another 22,000 pounds worth of equipment on top. The 14.8-liter V8 diesel produced roughly 240 horses while generating close to 2,000 pounds of twisting force. 6 powered wheels with reinforced leaf spring suspension absorbed incredible abuse from harsh, broken ground. Whether muddy bogs, snowy wastes, or jagged mountain passes, aesthetically it screamed toughness. Angular body panels, enormous wheel wells, all steel fabrication, and rubber standing nearly 5 feet tall. The cargo bed sat so ridiculously high that troops regularly needed ladders or grab bars just climbing aboard. Why position? Everything so tall? Pure versatility. This workhorse could haul literally anything: fuel containers, missile systems, shipping crates, even smaller armored vehicles. It served everywhere across the Soviet sphere, from frozen Siberian outposts to Afghanistan's burning deserts, earning legendary status for unstoppable reliability despite minimal maintenance or freezing conditions. Here's an obscure detail. Throughout rural Soviet territories, electrical poles sometimes got temporarily dismantled, just allowing this giant clearance due to its proportions. Right now, numerous KRAZ 260s continue working across Eastern European nations, plus scattered regions throughout Africa and Asia. A true relic that refuses to quit. ZIL 135. Where the MZKT represented focused strength, the ZIL 135 embodied pure engineering insanity. Manufactured by ZIL throughout the late 50s, This vehicle didn't rely on just one power plant. It packed two complete V8 engines, each independently powering opposite sides. Sounds completely bonkers? Definitely, but the concept worked brilliantly. Dimensions reached past 33 feet lengthwise, 10 feet across, and nearly 10 feet vertically. Unloaded weight hovered around 44,000 pounds, though it hauled an extra 22,000 pounds, typically consisting of Frog 7 missiles or equivalent combat hardware. Combined, both engines produced more than 400 horses, while its 8 powered wheels enabled traversing totally devastated battlegrounds. Independent suspension across every axle maintained surprising smoothness despite such massive complexity. The driver compartment pushed forward, featuring small, narrow viewing ports and styling, resembling futuristic exploration vehicles rather than conventional military trucks. Once the rear-mounted missile launcher deployed, the entire platform transformed dramatically before observers' eyes. Why such enormous proportions? The launching apparatus demanded perfect balance plus rapid mobility. After firing missiles, immediate relocation became critical. Smaller platforms simply couldn't manage safely. Throughout its operational lifespan, the ZIL E167 demonstrated remarkable dependability despite incredibly complicated mechanics. And here's something amazing. Even running on just one functional engine, it maintained mobility, creating one of history's most redundant and over-engineered Cold War machine. Currently, it ranks as highly sought among Soviet military enthusiasts, with several still preserved in functional condition throughout Russian and Eastern European territories. Enjoying these Cold War behemoths? Go ahead and slam that like button, smash subscribe, and activate notifications because we're barely halfway through and the absolute biggest machines are still ahead. ZIL E167. If awards existed for the most bonkers Soviet truck ever conceived, the ZIL E167 would dominate the competition. Developed throughout the early 60s, this represented an ambitious attempt at building a vehicle capable of traversing literally any landscape, regardless of extremity, particularly Siberia's frozen emptiness. And accomplishing that mission required absolutely massive proportions. Dimensions exceeded 36 feet front to rear, stood more than 11.5 feet vertically, and measured approximately 10.5 feet across. That's genuinely larger than contemporary inner-city buses. Yet surprisingly, unladen weight remained around just 1,500 pounds, thanks to extensive lightweight material usage. 6 powered wheels received power from dual V8 gasoline engines, each generating 180 horses, combining for 360 total horsepower. The twin-engine configuration provided backup redundancy. Should one power plant fail, the truck continued operating. But what genuinely distinguished it were those tires, towering over 6.5 feet with aggressive tread patterns engineered for gripping snow, ice, and mud like gigantic snowshoes. Every axle featured independent suspension with oversized dampeners allowing the platform to practically float across soft landscapes. The ZIL E167 underwent testing throughout Ural mountain regions, powering through blizzards, peat bogs, and steep grades that would challenge contemporary agricultural tractors. Those enormous dimensions weren't merely cosmetic. They served practical functions and delivered results. Here's an obscure fact. The experimental unit traversed territories where no motorized vehicle had previously penetrated, establishing routes eventually utilized for Siberian resource extraction operations. Unfortunately, due to extreme costs and intricate design complexity, the truck never achieved mass production. Just one experimental unit was constructed, and it survives currently, carefully maintained at Moscow's ZIL Museum. Visitors who've witnessed it firsthand describe it as some prehistoric steel creature engineered for roaming where humanity and machinery never previously ventured. And discussing creatures, our next vehicle abandons wheels entirely. It moves on continuous tracks like armored vehicles and resembles some science fiction polar exploration machine. Vityaz DT10. The Vityaz DT10 belongs to that category of vehicles, making people pause and exclaim, "That cannot possibly be a truck." Yet indeed it is. Manufactured throughout the early 80s, it was specifically engineered for operating in locations where even snowfall hesitates. deep as Siberia, Arctic territories, and even Antarctic regions. Naturally, its dimensions reflect that extreme mission. This constitutes a dual-section articulated tracked vehicle spanning more than 52 feet completely, standing 11.5 feet tall and measuring roughly 10 feet wide. Unladen weight exceeds 66,000 pounds. Yet despite that mass, it practically glides across deep powder like it's weightless. Rather than conventional wheels, the DT10 rides atop enormous tank-style tracks, each exceeding 28 inches in width, creating extremely minimal ground pressure, enabling smooth travel across soft snow, ice, and wetlands. The articulated connection between both sections provides exceptional maneuverability, even throughout tight, challenging terrain. Underneath resides a turbocharged V12 diesel power plant, generating more than 500 horses with sufficient torque for moving up to 132,000 pounds of cargo beyond its own considerable mass. The suspension system handles sub-zero temperatures, utilizing heavy-duty torsion bars, plus pressurized shock dampeners. Interior spaces are pressurized and heated, accommodating up to 5 personnel. Certain configurations include sleeping accommodations, portable maintenance facilities, and even scientific laboratories because it was specifically designed for complete self-sufficiency throughout Earth's most isolated locations. The DT10 gained recognition through polar expedition deployments, though it also served Arctic petroleum and natural gas operations where conventional trucks would freeze solid or sink hopelessly. Here's something remarkable. Several civilian variants were actually purchased by wealthy Russian entrepreneurs for private expeditions equipped with luxury appointments and oversized fuel reserves. Think that's impressive? Prepare yourself. The next one is so ridiculously enormous it could stack another complete truck on its deck with space remaining. MAZ 7310. The MAZ 7310 wasn't constructed for practicality, aesthetics, or even operator comfort. It existed for one explicit purpose: hauling cargo types that most trucks wouldn't even attempt approaching. Introduced throughout 1976, this 8-wheeled colossus served as a platform for ballistic weaponry, detection systems, fuel containers, and basically anything exceeding normal transportation capacity. Dimensions surpassed 36 feet lengthwise, reached 11.5 feet skyward, and spread nearly 10 feet sideways. Unladen mass exceeded 44,000 pounds, yet payload capacity reached 110,000 pounds, sufficient for stacking another complete truck topside with clearance remaining. It utilized that identical 38.8-liter V12 diesel from the MAZ 537, producing more than 500 horses plus massive torque that's sufficient for dragging something equivalent to a 3-level apartment building. 8 powered wheels combined with torsion bar suspension enabled rolling across wetlands, frozen earth, or loose sand, resembling some military cargo locomotive. But those dimensions weren't merely cosmetic. They represented absolute necessity. This platform frequently transported nuclear munitions or sensitive equipment across vast distances, accomplishing this without depending on railway networks or aviation transport. Its extended, wide chassis provided essential stability, particularly when missile systems were installed and armed. Visually, the MAZ 7310 projected pure intimidation. The narrow cockpit appeared almost incidental compared to that massive cargo section. And when that V12 thundered to life, military personnel reported feeling vibrations, rumbling through their torsos before hearing actual sound. Here's an obscure detail. Certain MAZ 7310s underwent modification for transporting space rocket components during Soviet aerospace missions. Picture a truck hauling satellite launching system pieces. Yeah, that actually occurred. Currently, only scattered units remain operational, but encountering one personally feels more like confronting some rubber-tired railway locomotive than any truck. Still, shockingly, it's not even our largest entry because the next machine resembles some mobile tank manufacturing plant. MZKT 7930. The MZKT 7930 represents the evolutionary link connecting Soviet engineering traditions with contemporary Russian military capabilities. Manufactured throughout the 90s by the MZKT facility in Belarus, it was specifically designed for replacing aging models while carrying next-generation heavy armaments. And fulfilling that role demanded truly enormous proportions. Dimensions measured: approximately 39 feet lengthwise, 11.5 feet vertically, and just exceeding 10 feet laterally, with unladen mass around 46,000 pounds. But here's the stunning part. It could transport an additional 53,000 pounds of payload across rough terrain without struggling whatsoever. Power came from a V12 turbocharged diesel, generating roughly 520 horses backed by phenomenal torque. The 8-wheel drive arrangement, combined with independent suspension plus steering assistance across multiple axles, enabled maneuvering like something half its actual dimensions. Truly shocking given its bulk. The cockpit featured advanced technology for that period, accommodating 4 personnel, air filtering for chemical or nuclear conditions, and across many configurations, complete shielding against external hazards. But what genuinely captures attention is the total length when completely equipped. With a missile launcher like the Iskander installed, the complete system extended past 65 feet, ranking among Earth's largest wheeled combat platforms. Here's an interesting detail. Because of its staggering proportions, the MZKT 7930 frequently requires railway transportation, just reaching its operational zone. And even across highways, it typically moves within heavily guarded military convoys. Currently, it remains actively deployed by Russian and partner militaries and ranks among history's most dependable mobile launching platforms. It's a rolling command fortress engineered for striking decisively and vanishing rapidly. And if you consider that enormous, prepare to meet our absolute champion. A truck so extraordinarily large it can transport other complete trucks while still having capacity remaining. KZKT 7428. If one single truck perfectly defines Soviet engineering excess, it's definitely the KZKT 7428. Manufactured throughout the 80s by the KZKT manufacturing complex in Kurgan, Russia, this absolute monster was specifically designed for towing the absolute heaviest equipment throughout Soviet military inventory, including main battle tanks, mobile missile installations, and intercontinental launching platforms. And accomplishing that mission required truly staggering proportions. The 7428 extends past 43 feet completely, climbs nearly 13 feet vertically, and spans 10.5 feet laterally. Unladen mass exceeds 66,000 pounds, with towing capacity surpassing 150,000 pounds. That positions it alongside mining haulers and industrial railway engines for sheer capability. Underneath, a 40-liter turbocharged V12 diesel power plant. Yes, genuinely 40 liters. Generating approximately 1,000 horses with estimated torque reaching 10,000 pound-feet. This machine could legitimately drag a small watercraft if someone attached appropriate wheels. It employed an 8x8 drivetrain, reinforced suspension architecture, and automated transmission mechanisms designed for handling steep ascents, muddy inclines, snow-blanketed roads, and desert environments. The tires? Each exceeding 5 feet vertically, sufficiently large that full-grown adults could stand behind them and completely vanish. But why construct something so monumentally massive? Because it had to relocate nuclear equipment across hundreds of miles without causing any structural damage. The enormous chassis provided exceptional stability, while sheer mass contributed to transport precision. Visually, it's absolutely intimidating. The narrow armored cockpit features minimal viewing ports, and overall aesthetics resemble some mobile fortification rather than any conventional truck. When the engine ignites, it sounds like jet turbines spooling, and the Earth literally trembles beneath its mass. Here's an obscure fact. The KZKT 7428 also participated in extreme civilian applications, like relocating nuclear reactor assemblies or extracting disabled railway equipment from inaccessible territories. Currently, it's extraordinarily rare encountering one beyond military storage facilities or museum collections, but surviving units are maintained like historical artifacts, reminders of when engineering prioritized absolute capability over any limitations. And with that, we conclude our expedition through some of history's most outrageous machines, the Cold War era ever produced. Throughout this entire video, we've journeyed through a collection of mechanical titans, machines engineered for challenging rational thinking, dominating landscapes, and confronting seemingly impossible scenarios. From amphibious rescue vehicles retrieving cosmonauts across Siberian ice to colossal platforms transporting nuclear weapons larger than buses, every truck featured here carries significance beyond mere weight. It carries historical importance, strategic value, and engineering brilliance. These trucks weren't simply constructed for transportation. They were engineered for forging pathways where infrastructure didn't exist. For crossing snowfields, marshlands, deserts, and accomplishing this while moving tons of equipment. They symbolize an era when engineering refused accepting boundaries and where enormous dimensions weren't excessive. They were absolutely essential. Now tell me down in the comments, which of these giant machines did you find most absolutely insane? Which one would you love experiencing up close or even operating? And if you had to select one for an extreme mission, which one would it be? And naturally, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell because every week there's a new video showcasing the most incredible machines that dominate ice and snow, mud, and the world's most extreme conditions.